Hello everyone, I'm Caris Lambert, the Digital Content Manager here at Moorepay. So welcome to this unique webinar series we've made for professionals working in and around payroll, which is part of our autumn payroll careers series designed to help you excel in your role. In this particular webinar, we'll be talking about how to progress in the payroll industry from the start right to a senior position so that you never feel stuck in your career, whatever stage you're at right now. And in it, we're joined by two Moorepay celebrities, Christina Holloway, Head of Managed Services, and Jenn Morrell, Senior Payroll Team Manager, who will be bringing their expertise in both payroll and also people management to help you advance your career further. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Yeah, so the agenda today, as you probably noticed when you signed up, is an introduction to including dispelling payroll career myths, opportunities for advancement, particularly from mid to senior positions, which is what we wanted to focus on, using payroll software to your advantage to get ahead in the industry, tips on how to train your team and most importantly your successors, and learnings from the Moorepay Payroll Academy with Jenn. And finishing with a Q&A and some more resources for you that might help. How to ask a question. If you can see on your screen, you should have a little GoToWebinar box that pops up. So you can pop in any questions you have in there and we'll try and go through as many as we can at the end. We'll also send everyone a recording of this webinar and the slides. So you don't need to take notes and you don't need to worry if you have to drop out at any time. Just sit back and enjoy the webinar and we'll follow up with you. And just a very quick tiny bit about Moorepay for anyone who's new here. Moorepay have been around for nearly 60 years now, and our mission is to make payroll and HR easy for customers. For all of these reasons on this slide is why our customers choose us, from our secure technology to our trusted team of experts like the team speaking here today, and our industry recognised accreditations as well. And we make payroll and HR easy through easy to use software and quality services, which means worry-free compliance to you. And if you'd like to learn any more about us, just let me know again in the chat or the questions, and one of our advisors will follow up. And there'll also be an opportunity to do this at the end in a little survey that will pop up as you leave the webinar. But meeting your presenters today, Christina Holloway is Head of our Managed Services in Payroll. She joined Moorepay in 2019 as Director of Service Excellence and runs Moorepay's Managed Payroll Services, including payroll and auto-enrollment. Christina also manages many senior leaders and supports their advancement in Moorepay, including payroll managers. So she's going to have some fantastic insights from her experiences in this webinar. Jenn Morrell is our Senior Payroll Team Manager, and she joined us in 2011 as a payroll consultant, and since has had 4 whopping promotions, so she's in the perfect position to give tips on progression. She's MCIPP qualified and runs Moorepay's very successful Payroll Academy, where she trains up new payroll recruits and teaches them how to run the payroll. So she'll be sharing tips from that too. And now I'm passing you over to Christina to start the webinar.
Thank you, Caris. Good morning, everybody. It's great for you all to join us here today. And I'm hoping what we talk about today is of interest to anyone who is both considering a career in payroll or is currently working within the industry and is looking for an advancement. So first of all, we'll be looking at why we choose a career in payroll, and then what opportunities there are and how to maximise on those opportunities as they present themselves to you. A little bit more about me. I'm actually into my 24th year in payroll. Most of those, well, 20 years of those were with Moorepay. I did rejoin the company in 2019 because I actually liked the bureau environment. It's not that I didn't like in-house, I loved that, but I prefer to work where payroll is king. So payroll is the industry, it's the money generating force of Moorepay. In-house, you have a different experience, and it's really the type of person you are, the kind of career that you want, as to what choices you would make. I didn't actually choose the career. I'm of that generation where it almost happened accidentally. My initial career was actually in printing, which seems far removed, but there were actually really big transferable skills from printing, which is very much about eye for detail, using how you use your equipment, quite pressurized, and all about quality and deadlines. So anyone in payroll can instantly recognize where that type of environment could be very similar to the one we're working in today. I think, you know, within my role, I would say it's been extremely enjoyable, challenging, and above all, I think the people in the community in the payroll industry are fantastic. And I suppose that's why, or part of the reason why, that I found no reason to leave the industry at all for all this time. It's one I really enjoy working within. So why choose a career in payroll? So it's hardly surprising that payroll is now a highly respected profession, and it opens up endless opportunities for advancement, either within payroll or as a stepping stone to other careers. I think we've come a long way from when it was considered to be a job rather than a career, and, you know, almost lurking in the shadow of areas such as finance or HR. Nowadays, and we have to thank CIPP at a large extent for elevating the profile of our profession. And I mean, if you look today now, the career pathway goes right the way up to chartered status. So when you consider what the payroll community is responsible for, so we'll just go through a few of if anyone isn't working within, this is what we're all about, with collection, reporting and payment of billions to the government treasuries. So, you know, that's a really important role within the whole, you know, business community and in government to get those taxes over so we can keep the economy going. And when you think of what an expenses in a business are, the labour costs are the most expensive, and an efficient payroll provision is key to any business's profitability. So it's no wonder that in any business, the payroll team are highly respected and appreciated. We also have to keep businesses compliant. Legislation is complex, it's always changing, and we know that any non-compliance can result in some severe penalties. So that's the reason why payrollers, or anyone who is thinking about choosing careers payroll, you need to understand that it's all about continuous learning. Changes are commonplace and to be expected, and you have to keep up with those changes. But it's the accurate, timely and secure payroll, pension and benefits to employees which we're all about. They have a direct impact on the well-being and engagement of employees. They rely on us. So this is the responsibility which many payroll people will tell you makes them passionate about what they do. This is why they get up, they dress up, they turn up, they have to be reliable to meet those deadlines and provide a first-class service either to your external clients or to your internal clients. And the other reason, just for choosing payroll, it's very accessible. whatever stage in your life or experience, there are pathways into payroll. So just make sure that you've got a solid foundation in maths. As I said, an eye for detail, well organised, computer literate, and good communication skills are all valued. But above all, you have to be reliable and trustworthy. So we have a unique privileged position within any business. We've got access to highly sensitive and confidential information. So what I look for in any person joining at any level is integrity and a passion for what we do. And that is the key ingredient for anyone wanting to choose a career in payroll. So just running through these that are noted on the screen. So as I said, it is respected position in any business. It used to always be said that people, the payroll team was only contacted if there was a problem. And I would really like to think that that is changing. There is the great appreciation for what payroll do. I personally, I was in hospital and the doctors asked me what I do for a living. And when I said payroll, they said, oh, wow, that's really important. But, considering what they do, I didn't think so. But they said if we weren't paid on time, we wouldn't be here. So, yeah, that really struck a chord with me. Potential freedom to work from wherever you want, including from home. Yes, I mean, we have a variety here of situations here in Moorepay. As any business does these days, I think we all learn to live differently throughout lockdown, and we won't go through the COVID and furlough payments shenanigans that we all remember very vividly still. And yes, that is commonplace to any, it's no different for payroll. I think one thing that stands out for me is I'm seeing it more through payrolls or through queries from clients saying I have an employee who wants to go and live in France and work from there. And global mobility is a bigger subject than it used to be. Demands for modified payrolls, shadow payrolls, etc. That's a lot more popular than recent years. And the ability to choose the team that works for you. Now, this is something that it makes the payroll industry great. I mean, you've heard for myself, I did choose to go back to bureau. I did really enjoy working in-house. It gave me the opportunity to work on global payrolls with countries in Europe, the Middle East, Asia Pac. Worked much more closely with benefits agencies and learned a lot more about promoting that to staff. It was great to be face to face with my clients every day, the employees. But then other people may prefer bigger teams. Some people may prefer just to be in UK payroll, and that's fine. It's really what suits you. But the great joy is if you want to be very ambitious and go for a big, global company where you get to travel around to various, sites that you're servicing payroll for, that's fine. That's really exciting for you. But if you want to be some people say I'm just happy doing what I do for my medium-sized company, and payroll has a variety and change within it. That's great too. It's really up to you to just assess what you want, what progression you want, what reward you want after all. But there's plenty of choices out there. Yes, the opportunity to learn new skills, it's not just the opportunity, it's essential if you're going to be successful within this career. Continuous learning, developments in software as well. Nowadays, when we're training our staff, we emphasise the fact that the payroll professionals of today and tomorrow much more about analysis and being tech savvy. as well as having all the traditional underlying skills that we have had in the past. Yeah, and several career paths are available with lots of payroll courses. As I said, CIPP has been great for promoting the profile of payroll, but also providing, along with other agencies as well, a huge amount of training out there. So go out and find out what's available. Okay, right, the myths of working in payroll. So I think we all snigger a little bit when we hear, well, it's boring, you know, we've all heard about that magic button that we flick and it all just happens. It really doesn't. And as I said, I think people do appreciate that now. It is varied, it is exciting and terribly fulfilling, with lots of different roles and responsibilities. I would kind of classify my, if I was to describe my career, I would say payroll's a bit of a roller coaster. You have to have that bit of adrenaline in you to make sure, you know, to keep you going and keep those deadlines coming. There is repetition. You know, every month you're running the payroll, or every week, but I think there's repetitiveness in every career to a certain extent, but I think, you know, there's a lot of days when I would have risked being bored. I don't think there's any chance with the way that legislation constantly changes, the way the world changes, that we'll be extinct and robots will be taking over anytime soon. So yeah, it's a big changing world. So you start in payroll and you stay in payroll. I wouldn't call this a myth, because it can happen and people do like to stay in payroll. But to suggest that people, once you're in there, will only stay in there, that's just not the case. I've seen many people come through Moorepay, for example, and in-house, where people have moved on to, well, certainly into finance from payroll. Some payroll teams, some payroll people prefer to work within a financial team, and others prefer to work closely with HR. So some people then make the leap to HR, but there's a huge amount of other roles, especially within a bureau, that you can aspire to. And no room for growth. Well, I think, as we can see later on in this webinar, just how many stages you go through within a payroll career. It does take time because there is so much to learn, not just in legislation, but also about how you apply those skills, and there's an art in using your software to deliver the payroll service and to remain compliant. So yeah, there's a huge amount of growth. Okay, Karis, do you want to go to the next one? So now we're in payroll and we know what it's all about. How do you get on and where can you go? So in payroll processing, I think the next slide will tell us all about the various stages. But as I said, I mean, if you want to go into accountancy, payroll is a good starting block for that. And I've certainly trained people who have gone on to join an accountancy firm, and with their payroll skills that they've brought to that company, and in turn they've then progressed within there. Software development. Now, as I said, these days, professionals, payroll professionals, need to be a lot more tech savvy. Software is continuously changing, and yeah, if you've got that kind of leaning, you can then progress into our software development, into our product teams, or into any kind of product teams if you so wish. Legislation, can be a career on its own, and indeed it is. We have our own legislation expert, and they're absolutely razor sharp on the latest in case histories or case studies, and that really feed into not just our payroll teams, but people that are building the product or building payrolls. Implementation, this is another area. Now, this is a key area. People who don't want to be client facing on a regular basis, but people who are in the background that are building the payrolls, which are then passed over to BAU. And this is a key area for making sure that the revenue comes into a bureau business. This is very much all about bureaus, to be honest, is getting the clients who are joining us and giving them the great experience into payroll by building up their software accurately for them. And of course, business operations is another is kind of leans on from the management side. So that's another big opening. So let's just look at progression routes in payroll. Usual titles, that's what I can recognise all of these on my CV. So trainee, you can come in, it's, as I said, basic. The basics is a good foundation in maths, organisational skills, but really, and a good communication skills as well. But really, we can train you in payroll, and it just requires your commitment and also a great appreciation for the privilege that you have within our business. And then obviously you go on to the next level. The more that you learn, the more independent you become, right the way through to specialist, senior specialist, and finally subject matter expert. There's, rather than just staying in a company as well, you may want to go into companies like CIPP. They have a lot of roles. They're keeping a pace of all the changes that are happening that affects the payroll world, and providing training courses which keeps on education where it needs to be, and also becoming an influencer within the industry. Okay, Caris, Q. Oh, I think we've got getting a bit stuck. There we go. Senior options for ambitious payrollers. So become a team leader. Well, this is really the management pathway. And as Caris referred to, I'm now got to the stage where I'm training future leaders within Moorepay, which is terribly exciting. And it really does open up a whole lot of new opportunities for me and for everybody who's in a management career. Now, some people might have an allergic reaction to the thought of managing people. It's not for everybody, and payroll does have a lot of other opportunities for people to progress, but management is terribly rewarding. I became a team leader fairly quickly. I was quite a people person and wanted to help people learn and be confident in their role. And now I'm teaching others to do the very same thing. So, but you know, if you want to go take your management level, well, to advance in your management career, you can finally get to you see careers for payroll directors, and it's all about the strategy. So yeah, there's a huge amount of options there. But yeah, other departments, as we've already covered, and opportunities in other businesses are all there for the taking. So how do you do that? So on the next slide, please, Caris. Can you put the slide forward, Caris? Thank you. So how to stand out and be the best candidate for a promotion? My advice to anybody who is looking for promotion is to take advantage of any opportunity that comes to you. And it may not seem obvious, but if your business is asking for volunteers to contribute, however small, to a project, then take it. Network as much as you can within your organisation, even if you're in a relatively small team in-house. You can find opportunities to add value to your business, and the more you add value to your business, the more you become recognised. And if you're showing that you're prepared to get involved and to have success in certain tasks, or then you will be a selection for other tasks. And finally, you will become known and recognised quite quickly. But from my long experience, I would say this is the key part of progression. Get involved. And don't wait to be asked, just put yourself forward, volunteer, and get yourself noticed. Now, training continuously. If you're considering payroll as a career, you need to commit to this, because not only is there an awful lot to learn of the basics, but there are an awful lot of changes that happen year on year, and you need to keep up to date. It's also true that software will be updated and changed, or your business will decide to change either a provider or a software, and you need to keep yourself knowledgeable about what you're doing. Now, this is critical, because if you don't keep yourself up to date, you may reach the sort of giddy heights of subject matter expert, but if you do not keep up to date, then you start going stale. So you can be hard, but if you don't and keep up to date, then that will start to deteriorate. Something that we keep a check on. And again, advocate for yourself. If you don't feel comfortable, it's understandable. Not all of us want to bang our own drum about what we do, but at least sort of speak to your manager on your one-to-ones and make sure that you point out all the good things that you have done, what you've learned, what you've covered, what you've achieved, what you're doing this month that you haven't done last month. A good manager will kind of recognise that and point them out to you, but just make sure that you keep a track of that yourself. Okay, so I'm now going to pass over to Jenn, who will start talking about how using software can be to your advantage and how you build your team. So thanks, Jenn.
Thank you very much, Chris, and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us again today. Just a very brief intro for myself, which I know Caris has done. So 12 years within the payroll industry, similarly to Christina, used it as a stepping stone. I've always enjoyed numbers and thought the finance route would be great, but actually have loved the people part of payroll, and the fact that you're always learning, as Chris has just said. Just in the short time comparably that I've been in payroll, we've had real-time information, we've had auto-enrolment, apprenticeship levy. I could go on and on. We are always learning, it's constantly evolving, legislation's being updated, and as we say here, software is one of the advantages to keep up with that, and how we use software to our advantage. As payroll professionals, we should understand what our software does, but equally we want to make it work for us. Processing payrolls, we should be thinking, how can I make this better, more efficient? How can I reduce that risk? One of the key points, if you let your software, or if you make your software do this for you, is you gain time. Your software calculating pay for you, clever software automating the most time-consuming parts of your job, meaning that you can spend more time on, exactly as Christina has just been speaking about, that training, developing, networking. When processing, we'd encourage, look at what data you have. Can you import it? Can you set this up permanently? Is your net pay exception reporting correct? Depending on your type of business, you might not want to report on a 1% variance. You might want to report on a 50% variance. It's all looking at how your software can do all of this and gain your time as a payroll professional back. In addition, you want your payroll to reduce any errors. I'm sure we're all aware here, the key elements of payroll are that it's done on time and it's done accurately. So what can you put within your software to make sure that happens? Corrections, conversations with colleagues and managers, they all take time. Again, relating back to the gaining our time back, we want our software to prevent errors from happening. Most clever software, again, can do error reporting, be it if you enter hours for overtime, but a colleague doesn't have an hourly rate. You want your software to be telling you that that error is there, so you can pick it up and you can fix it before you run your payroll. If an error has happened previously with perhaps a manual calculation, can you, within your software, build formulas so you don't have to do those manual calculations that are repetitive, making the software work for you. And finally, again, incredibly important, we want to stay compliant. The software that us as payroll professionals use, we want to trust that it's compliant and up to date with legislation. Again, if it isn't, it's going to take time and it's going to increase errors. Depending on where you are within your career, allows you to focus on different elements. If you have all of these three elements within your software, it can help you with focusing on colleague support. They can trust that the legislation on their payslip they're receiving is correct, and you can support and guide them as to how to understand this. Alternatively, if you're in one of these higher level positions, as Christina said, it can allow you to support the business, again, perhaps with the total payroll cost, how it's calculated, assessing these costs within the business. Thanks, Caris. There's some key payroll software features that we would advise to look out for. Cloud-based, as it says, standard within our industry and within many others, and it means payroll is on the go. This is not only for us as payroll professionals, but for colleagues who want to access their payslips, perhaps want to book holiday, depending on if you have that integrated HR and payroll system. It also allows to drive efficiencies, as previously, if you had a hosted system, you might need to be in a certain location to offer payroll support to colleagues or to the business, whereas now you can do that quicker and at perhaps a time that suits you. All payroll software has to be secure. As we can see here, and so I'm sure we've heard in the news over the past, there have been data breaches within the industry, and payroll and HR data is incredibly sensitive. We need to keep all the data secure, it's confidential, personal data, and making sure the software that you have and the processes you have in place comply with this. You can check for this by monitoring Software BitSite and making sure the software providers have accreditations and certifications such as the ISO 27001. Do look at your processes internally as well. Are your processes of transmitting any data, personal data, payroll data, HR data, secure? A software that automates basic pay calculations for you. We want it to do this. The more the software can do, the more you as payroll professionals have time to focus on other elements of your role. Not only basic pay calcs, statutory leave payments. Does it calculate SSP, SMP, shared parental pay? In addition, contractual leave payments. Is your system and your software set up to calculate perhaps occupational sick pay, company maternity pay, any of these additional payments that within your business or within the bureau environment it may do for you? Another item, reporting. What reports within your role as a payroll professional within the business would you like to see? Reporting is an essential skill, dependent anywhere where you are within your career. An ad hoc reporting tool is a great item within payroll software, so you can run a report when you need it, when a line manager needs it, when a colleague needs it to extract relevant data. But equally, consider setting up permanent reports. If there's reporting that you run month on month, you have to create each month, you vary it slightly, can your software set up something that's permanent so it's hands off and even generate notifications to those who may need to see it? A final feature which we would recommend, is the all-in-one solution. So within payroll, we're aware we work with HR, we work with finance, we work with wider business teams. We want our software to be clever enough to collect information or somehow integrate with these other areas that need payroll data. As we say, working collaboratively with other teams or functions within the organisation. What do they need to know? It's asking these questions as well. Perhaps finance are asking for a report in a certain way, but actually you can provide it in a different way, and the system can automatically do that rather than them having to read through the reports that are as standard set up. It's questioning all of these things and making sure, as we said at the beginning, that the software works for you as payroll professionals. What can we make it do? Asking these questions, be it of the software expert within your business internally or the software provider. Definitely ask. And then on to the next section. Thank you very much, Caris. So this moves on to building our team, with a key element being, for those who wish to progress, as Christina said, why you should find and train your successor. Because how are you going to get promoted if there's no one good enough to replace you? So 3 key pillars here. The first being, it is good for the business for you to upskill and train your successor. How can you ensure your colleague or team can run successfully in your absence is the key part that I've always thought and tried to maintain and aimed for over the years. The goal being, I can be hands-off enough for my colleagues or my team to run payrolls, to support, without me being there. Effectively, I want to have done a good enough job that can run in my absence. As it says, organisations that don't plan for succession well are often left feeling the effects of turnover and staffing changes for quite some time. We want to continuously train and upskill colleagues within the payroll environment. What's next, what's upcoming, and how can we do better with where we're at today? It's good for you. So if you're wanting to move on and if you're wanting to progress, it's important finding that person or people who could do your role so you can transition into that new role. Equally, if you're training colleagues well enough and they're developing into new processes and being able to step up to that next point, it allows you to focus in the interim perhaps on improvements that you can make to that team setting, to the payroll, to a process. It just buys that time back to focus on other items. And the final point, it takes a village. The management team around you are absolutely an important ally in the training of your successor. If you communicate with them and ask for help, you'll probably be quite surprised that if you talk to colleagues, you'll likely find there's advocates for people already and you'll get buy-in. It could help them too. Not only could you train perhaps in elements of the role that you do, could colleagues train in elements of other people's role. It all helps with progression, development, and a spread of the workload. Moving on, Karis. Great, thank you. So some top tips for training new payroll recruits. Firstly, clearly outline expectations. Now, for me, this is not just expectations that you may have for the new colleague, but equally, what expectations do they have of you, perhaps their line manager, or equally of the business? It's really important to get those expectations set front to start with. Both sides know exactly what the goals are, what the training plan is, what the, as it says, 30, 60, 90-day plan is. Everyone's aligned and knows how to move forward. Secondly, understanding needs, and not just needs, wants. So fundamentally, what does a colleague need to understand the new role that they're moving into? What background have they come from? What experience do they have? And where are the skill gaps? So you can move on, progress, learning and development on the areas that are required. But equally, what do they want? What is there, perhaps, where do they see themselves in 5 years, 10 years? So you know you can tweak how you work with a colleague to where they want to be. It creates buy-in, and really does work both ways. Buddying up is another really good and solid tip for training new colleagues. One study found that 86% of new employees who had a mentor during the onboarding phase were more likely to stay with their company long term. We've all been in that situation on your first day, perhaps week within a new business or a department, and it can be a scary place if you don't have the right people to go to. You can have multiple buddies for a new colleague. I usually find that works well because then people or new colleagues have a range of people to go to, and it helps them build relationships across the department. But it's really key that they have colleagues as go-to points to develop both professional and personal relationships with. Keeping them engaged. Now, this is absolutely a key one. As I think Christina mentioned earlier, a lot of payroll is, we can teach it, but a lot of it's attitude as well. We want our colleagues happy, coming to work, and as it says, with remote employees, it actually can be challenging. We've found that mixing up what you do, making sure that you don't do a week solid of, let's say, e-learning, and then the next week solid of classroom learning. Mix it up. Everyone has different learning styles, and whilst it might not be possible to cater specifically to one individual's, if you have a whole cohort of new joiners, mixing up these learning styles by doing a blend of training and learning options really works. On the job training, perhaps one-to-one sessions, group sessions, constantly changing it. Colleagues usually have a tendency to prefer one method over the other, but again, it's all development and can help them long term. And finally, again, very, very important, keep checking in with colleagues. We'll cover it very shortly, but strongly would encourage to block time out to make sure you have that check-in point with them. We want to understand what are their career goals, what growth do they want, so we can make sure the future training is applicable. The more you check in continually makes it easier to make tweaks to a colleague's learning journey. If, for example, for a new colleague, you wait a month or 2 months to have that check-in, that's a lot of time. That's 4 to 8 weeks potentially that have passed. And if there was something they didn't feel comfortable on, or they wanted to recap, an awful lot of time has passed to then backtrack to make those changes. So I would encourage frequent, regular check-ins to make sure it works for both, and make sure you're starting back at the beginning with the expectations. Are we meeting them on both sides? Really important. And finally, on to the last slide. So a very brief overview of Moorepay's Payroll Academy. We launched this, I think it was late last year, so almost a year this has been ongoing now, and we had a cohort of colleagues with varying expertise come into Moorepay, and together we onboarded and developed as a team. And now moving forward, we've got solid onboarding processes in place. And we've learned a lot from this experience. It's always really important to reflect, as I'll go through just in a moment, to make sure new colleagues get the best experience. So here's my top tips and key learnings. I would strongly encourage ensure any new colleague meets the wider business team. It's really important that they can understand their impact on the wider business, how their role fits in. It helps them make connections, and actually it could open their eyes to potential career paths. This can be within any business that a payroll professional is joining. Make sure they meet other areas, really important. As I've said, and I shan't dwell on it too much, but it is one of my big points, making sure you have regular team check-ins and one-to-ones. As I said, schedule these in. It helps build relationships, and new colleagues know they have time blocked out that's either theirs to meet with their manager or their team. It's their time, and it's really important to make sure diaries are blocked out to make sure this happens. Creating the right work environment. Now, when we launched the Academy, it was a place where we wanted it to be that place where new colleagues came on board, and it was professional, collaborative and supportive. And it's getting that buy-in from both managers, current colleagues and new colleagues, that we're all working towards this environment. And everyone's trying to achieve that, being it on calls, on training, courses, that's what people are working towards. We want those behaviours across the team. A really key one, ensuring support is available for new colleagues. Now, this doesn't necessarily need to be the manager. It can be existing team members. We found when we launched the Academy, because there were varying levels of expertise within colleagues who were coming to Moorepay, some had been in payroll for many, many years, support could be within their existing team. It's just signposting colleagues so they know that support is there for them. You could have knowledge bases, you could have processing instructions, or even trusted internet sites such as HMRC. It's making sure colleagues know where they can go to for reliable and almost continual support. Asking for feedback, a big advocate for this. So if you are onboarding a new colleague, or if you're delivering training courses, in most aspects of what you may do in payroll, ask for feedback. Start by saying how you intend to, perhaps within a training session, what objectives you intend to get out of the session. But at the end, ask, how did I do? What could go better? Yeah, it's really important to get that feedback from colleagues. Has this gone well? What could we do better next time? Did we achieve what we intended to achieve? Equally, or the next point, even better, ask colleagues for ideas. Colleagues new to the business have a fresh set of eyes and are the best people to look at what you do today. Are the processes easy to understand? Could they be better? Again, within Moorepay's Payroll Academy, we did exactly this, and we had a lot of suggestions from our new colleagues. One of which being one of our systems ordered items in a certain way, and a new colleague said, oh, well, why don't we order it this way, because it could save everyone that simple click every time they log in. And we requested it of our development teams, and it's changed. So now this new colleague has saved everyone across the department a click, potentially multiple times a day. So there's great ideas from people who are new to joining your business. Ask them. And then my final point, this is something that a mentor once taught me, and it's something I try and keep in my head, as I'm sure those of you who are in payroll professionals know. The aim of payroll is 100% accuracy. But actually the processes that go along with that, building your team, training, learning, try your best to focus on progress, not perfection. So this helps things get done and get started. I'd encourage reflection with new colleagues, really encourage them to reflect. So with skills matrices, for example, do you have them within your business so you can really track what people are learning, what people need to learn, and where they're at? Perhaps have a RAG status on it to see how their understanding is. It's a really useful tool, because then you can help the colleague to reflect. Okay, you've been in the business, let's say 2 months, look at how much we've learned already. And you can have that same conversation in 4 months, 6 months. It's that progression. You can't be perfect when you join a new business on the first day. You absolutely can't. So I'd strongly encourage this quote again, which does stick with me: focus on progress and not perfection. Thanks, Karis.
Thank you so much, Jen. Thanks, Christina, as well. So we've just got 5 minutes for a couple of questions. I've seen we've got a couple of product questions in the chat, but we'll get in touch with you after the webinar. Laura and our product expert will advise on that. But on the topics, we've had one question. Any tips for a mid-tier payroll professional on becoming that influencer / thought leader in payroll? I think perhaps Christina might have a thought or two.
Yeah, more than a thought. I think, first of all, if you want to be a thought leader, the place to, I would recommend the CIPP. They have a wide range of educational opportunities, but if you're not a member already, do become a member, because they're always looking for people to come in on focus groups, to write articles for them. So look at what other people are writing about. With membership, you'll get a magazine, and there's plenty of other organisations out there too. And there's like the Global Payroll Association as well. So to me, get engage with the payroll community at large, and put yourself out there. I can, there's lots of training courses that you can go on, but look at the topics of the day and make your comment. If you want to be a thought leader, share your thoughts and get involved. I don't know if you're wanting to progress out of your career and into a more of a payroll leader or an industry leader, then as I said before, look for those opportunities. Go and look and see what's out there. But definitely, if you want to be a thought leader or someone who's key to how the industry is changing and how we bring people on, then yeah, look, I would definitely suggest CIPP and look what it's full of thought leaders. Look at what they're saying, and send in your particular contributions, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Also, just a top tip, we've got our next webinar, which I'll mention in a second. We're joined by Vicky Graham from the CIPP, so that could be ideal for anyone thinking about progressing their career into the CIPP. I'll mention that in a minute. And we've got another question asking if the Moorepay Academy offers training sessions or courses for Moorepay software subscribers. I'd love to learn more about using the software, reporting and improving on our processes. Linda, the Moorepay Academy specifically doesn't, as it's an internal team, but we do have a series of training for various parts of the software, and we had the first one on hierarchy last week, so I will forward you that information after this webinar, and hopefully that will help you make the most of your software. And just one last question from us. Other than people management, do you have any other recommendations for a payroller who loves working with people? I guess either Jenn or Christina could take this one.
Shall we both respond, Chris? I'm sure we'll. I think one of the, if you love people, the journey that actually probably both Chris and I have both been on, without talking on behalf of Chris, is that learning and development training element of working with people. If you love payroll and you know payroll, it's passing on those key skills that you have without managing people. You could perhaps train them, be a mentor, be a coach, to help your fellow payroll professionals. Chris, I'll let you answer if you had anything.
Well, I think the question seemed to infer that they would like to work more with a people focus, rather than just payroll per se. I would certainly say that our close colleagues with HR is an area that you should explore. I've worked within an HR team. I worked for the company's HR director. I learned a huge amount about people management from that experience. So yeah, but ultimately, if you're interested in managing people, if you've got the opportunity to do that within payroll, in a payroll environment, those management skills can be transferred anywhere. You know, the essentials of management. That's why, you know, a subject matter expert isn't always the best person to be training other people, because then, you know, sometimes they're not terribly people focused. They'd like to just work on their own rather than be as part of a team, maybe, or are very focused on their own development or the task in hand rather than managing people. Management of people is hugely rewarding. Training people, I know Jenn gets a great satisfaction, as did I, from that. And but you can do that in any environment.
Thank you both. I think that was a great answer with lots of nice options. So I'm just going to wrap up with a few resources that might help you. As you can see, we've got 2 more webinars in this series, so if you enjoyed this today, you'll probably enjoy these. The next one is on anything but ordinary, where a panel of our other senior staff members at Moorepay and also Vicky Graham, who's the Business Development Director at the CIPP, will share their own career journeys and the tips they've picked up on the way. More of a panel webinar, it should be quite interesting. And then the third one is on embracing neurodiversity, which is in November, where we're joined by our group product legislation manager, Sybil Watkins, who's a neurodiverse payroll professional, and she'll talk about her own journey and also how neurodivergent people can excel in payroll, and also how you can support any neurodivergent colleagues in general, as well as in the industry. So that one also should be pretty fantastic, we may say so. So I'd highly recommend. You can sign up on our website. I've popped the web address down there. But if you go to our website and you head to our Knowledge Centre in the menu bar, you'll be able to search for them, or you can go down to webinars and select them from there. And we've also got another webinar, which is quite a unique one, coming in October. And this one is a conversation with our MD and also Natural HR's co-founder, Jason Dazzle. And they'll be talking about our acquisition of Natural HR and how it's going to, well, it already is improving our HR software and bringing payroll software and HR software together as one complete solution. And if you do attend, you also get a free copy, so that's pretty cute as well. Again, you can find that on the Knowledge Centre if you want to. Yeah, and just lastly, if you do want any help with Moorepay's product currently, or if you want to learn more, just let us know either in the comments or in the little survey that will pop up in a second, and we can talk you through any solutions we have, and it'll be, you know, completely no pressure if you do just want to learn a little bit more. And that's all we've got today. So thank you so much for attending. I hope you found it really enjoyable. And thank you for your comments and questions as well. And thanks to our presenters, Christina and Jennifer.